How is the integration of Karl Anthony Towns actually going to look like? All that and much more on the Knicks Digest. What's up, guys? It's your boy Dariel once again. Before I dive into today's video, I just want to say how much of me talking about Karl Anthony Towns being with the Knicks is so weird right now. I'm still processing it, man. I'm still processing it in real time. But for the point of this video, I wanted to talk about how the combination of a Jalen, Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, pick and roll, pick and pop, how that could really help the Knicks, what the offense is going to look like. But before I dive into that, I want to talk about Karl Anthony Towns, the individual player, the skills, the talent that he can bring to the table. Now, Karl Anthony Towns coming from the Western Conference, where the Western Conference, year in, year out, you're looking at teams that are just... it's a competitive roundabout. You got the Dallas Mavericks, the combination of Luka and Kyrie, and now the emergence of Derek Lively. You got the San Antonio Spurs, the team not so much, but Victor Wembanyama is going to be a top 10 player. I would not be surprised by the end of this upcoming season, which would be his sophomore season. That's how good he is. You got the Los Angeles Lakers with King James, with Anthony Davis. You got the Denver Nuggets with Jokic, obviously. The level of competition in the Western Conference was no joke. And now coming to the Eastern Conference, and if we're looking at that 5 spot specifically, I think the only teams that we might have to really take a look at in the Eastern Conference, we're looking at the Miami Heat, which we could never sleep on. We're looking at the Boston Celtics, obviously, the reigning defending champions. We're looking at the Milwaukee Bucks, obviously, with Giannis. But Karl Anthony Towns is going to have an advantage on most nights. Let's start off with the Milwaukee Bucks. Brook Lopez is on the other side of his career. Brook Lopez has gone from a back to the basket, low post kind of guy to completely changing his game from going from that to basically a pick and pop guy. And when I say pick and pop, I mean making his living behind the three-point line. Karl Anthony Towns has the age on his side. Karl Anthony Towns can't put the ball on the floor, blow by Brook Lopez, and dunk on someone's head. Now, again, the question that I keep bringing up with Karl Anthony Towns is his love of the three-pointer. We need specifically for Karl Anthony Towns to take advantage of his mismatches. Whenever there is a switch on defense and they have a smaller player on Karl Anthony Towns, regardless of whatever team it is. I don't care if it's the defending champions Boston Celtics to the Detroit Pistons. I don't care. I want to see Karl Anthony Towns start to get away from that three-point ball and get into more, we can depend on you for getting fouls drawn because you get a mismatch and you're getting to a ref call blowing the whistle because obviously the little man can't guard you, so he's just hacking you. I want to see that Karl Anthony Towns. But going back to the Milwaukee Bucks and the matchup between Brook Lopez and Karl Anthony Towns, I'm taking Karl Anthony Towns in that matchup. The next team, Miami Heat, Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo for a while has been looked at as the best big in the Eastern Conference. Bam Adebayo is definitely a multifaceted big. He's not your traditional big. He could put the ball on the floor. He has a nice little mid-range, attack the rim. Athleticism is through the roof. And this is what I'm saying. Bam Adebayo hasn't had to have a lot of competition at that 5 spot in the Eastern Conference. And now you got Karl Anthony Towns coming from the Western Conference, coming to the Knicks, having to match up with Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo is going to have to really take that matchup with Karl Anthony Towns serious. If Karl Anthony Towns is really going to get into his bag this season and really show us Knicks fans what he's really made out of, he's not going to depend on that three-point shot. He's going to bully ball every 5-man in the Eastern Conference this upcoming season, which is what I want to see. I want to see Karl Anthony Towns have a chip on his shoulder because it's not all sweet, bro. It is not all sweet from Knicks fans. We have a lot of questions. Just because you have all-star appearances, 3 or 4, the amount doesn't really matter. Just because you have deep playoff runs doesn't matter. We need you to come here and be the Robin to Jalen Brunson's Batman. We need you to come here and show us Knicks fans that we can depend on you for being the second best player on a team. The second best player on a team with high expectations, might I add you. Expectations to, prior to you coming, were Eastern Conference Finals. Eastern Conference Finals or a failure. And now just because you come does not get you off the hook. We still need you to play at your level. But let me calm down for a second. Going back to the matchup between Bam, of course, I'm talking about playoffs because the expectations, like the rant I just went on, is very high for this team. So the Knicks in the playoffs, with particular matchups, it's a different ball game. Playoffs is always a different ball game from the regular season. But then again, this brings me back to the basketball IQ of Karl Anthony Towns, his love of the three, and his idea of how to play. This is why I'm weary of the trade. I don't know if Karl Anthony Towns can rise up to the occasion. We haven't seen him do that much the last few seasons with the ascension of Anthony Edwards. The next matchup, the reigning defending champions, the Boston Celtics. Kristaps Porzingis, when he's healthy, we saw what he did against the Dallas Mavericks in that game 1 of the finals. He was a Swiss Army knife, blocking shots, hitting and ones, hitting mid-ranges, hitting three-pointers, putting the ball on the floor. Kristaps Porzingis, when he's healthy, he is a huge problem. And Karl Anthony Towns, that's going to be the matchup that he has. He's going to have to follow Kristaps Porzingis behind the three-point line. But the same could be said for Karl Anthony Towns on the opposite side. Kristaps Porzingis is going to have to guard Karl Anthony Towns, who can step behind the three-point line. So the advantage, I'm not sure who would have it. I would take Karl Anthony Towns, because Karl Anthony Towns, if he somehow could have an epiphany that the advantage that he has is having a bigger body, having more weight on Kristaps Porzingis, put your ass on the block and punish him. Make sure he feels it the next day. Make sure he has bruises, because you're just punishing him on the low block. I almost moved on from the Eastern Conference without talking about the 76ers, with probably the most prominent big man in the league. I'm a little ashamed of myself. But Joel Embiid, until Mitchell Robinson comes back, Karl Anthony Towns is going to have to be matched up with Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid right now is arguably the best big in the league, barring injury. That's a big conversation with Joel Embiid. But Karl Anthony Towns having to match up with Joel Embiid, I mean, Joel Embiid, I think, has the upper hand. He has the advantage. And I think you would take Joel Embiid every single time. So that might be the one matchup in the Eastern Conference where it's a definitive Joel Embiid and not even a conversation. Bam Adebayo and Karl Anthony Towns, I think, is a conversation. Kristaps and Porzingis, I'm taking Cat, but I think it could be a conversation. Brook Lopez and Karl Anthony Towns, I'll take Cat, but I could see someone bringing up a conversation and an argument for Brook Lopez. But Joel Embiid, when he's healthy, I mean, look at what he was doing last season before he went down with that injury, the knee injury, I believe, January in Golden State. He was just demolishing the league with the field goal percentage, with the accuracy, with just the way he was getting his numbers. It looked effortless. And yeah, I think Joel Embiid is the best big man in the game. So that might be the one matchup where Karl Anthony Towns might have a really, really long night. Now that I've talked about particular matchups in the Eastern Conference, let's talk about the combination of Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. Jalen Brunson, where he differentiates from Anthony Edwards, is at this point of Jalen Brunson's career, he is a better playmaker than Anthony Edwards. Right now, Anthony Edwards is, in his third, fourth year, maybe going into his fifth year. Anthony Edwards right now, we could see just the raw talent, the raw potential that he has. Anthony Edwards could be in the conversation for the best player in the league at the end of this upcoming season. But having said that, Anthony Edwards' skills and his talent is more so himself. He could really score. He could really put the ball in the bucket. But all of that I'm saying is really for himself. Where he needs to grow is his playmaking abilities. And this is where I think Jalen Brunson is going to be able to help Karl Anthony Towns. Jalen Brunson being able to be his man off the dribble, sucking in the defense, and then Karl Anthony Towns popping out, not necessarily for the three-point shot, but popping out for a little mid-range. Or if he has the three-point shot, he can hit that. So that's a nice little insurance that we have. But Jalen Brunson being able to create for himself and others, I really think Karl Anthony Towns is going to benefit the most out of this. And again, Jalen Brunson coming off that pick and roll, Karl Anthony Towns on the roll, Karl Anthony Towns on a pop out behind the three-point line, or again, on that pick and roll where defenses like to switch, Karl Anthony Towns in the Eastern Conference should have a field day. We're going to see if he realizes the mismatches and he has an ample opportunity to take advantage of them. The window of opportunity is still there for the Knicks, but like I keep saying, I'm weary of this trade. I think the original team of Randall, Dante, Josh, and the rest of the Villanova Knicks, I think we had a better opportunity to challenge the Boston Celtics as compared to this Knicks team after the Karl Anthony Towns trade. Now, I don't think that Leon Rose in the front office, I don't think that they're actually done. We have to wait until the season, obviously, around trade deadline to see what other moves that they make. But right now, Mitchell Robinson is going to be out for an extended period of time. Karl Anthony Towns is a starting big. Precious Achiuwa is backing up Karl Anthony Towns and Jericho Sims. When Mitchell Robinson comes back, we're going to have Mitchell Robinson at the 5, Karl Anthony Towns at the 4, OG at the 3, Mikal at the 2, and Jalen at the 1. The amount of length that we're going to have on the floor for that starting 5 is going to be scary. But Mitchell Robinson, we're not going to see it for a while. Mitchell Robinson is going to be out. So I'm only talking about the projected starting 5 that we're going to have for opening tip. And again, Brunson, Mikal, OG, Josh Hart, and Karl Anthony Towns. There's just so many ways that this can go now. I don't think that the front office is done making moves, but I don't think we're going to see another move until around trade deadline period. But I don't know, man. I was a lot more confident before the Karl Anthony Towns trade than I am now. In my opinion, there's actually more question marks after the trade than before. Now, I talked about how the offense is going to look like with Karl Anthony Towns at the 5 spot. But what about when Mitchell Robinson comes back? Even though that's probably going to be for a while, maybe February, I don't even know, but his ankle's not looking good at this point. But when Mitchell Robinson comes back, he'll be the starting 5. Karl Anthony Towns is going to be the 4. OG is probably going to be the 3. Mikal at the 2. Jalen at the 1. Name me a prominent power forward in the Eastern Conference. When Mitchell Robinson comes back, Karl Anthony Towns is going to slide back into his natural position. And that's where we might see Karl Anthony Towns really, really excel. But again, the questions of Karl Anthony Towns rising up to the occasion, the questions of Karl Anthony Towns' basketball IQ, that's really going to come into play. There's so many thoughts, there's so many emotions, there's so many takes that I can have right now. But guys, I just want to leave it at that. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I'm still flustered with this trade, so I can't give you my traditional sign-off, the Brunson, the Taj Gibson, the Deuce. I can't do all that. So for right now, I just want to say hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the Knicks Digest channel as Chris and I, we break down this trade and we break down everything from every different angle possible. But until next time, thanks for checking out this video, and I'll check you on the next one.